Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of Message of Hope. And today I have the pleasure to be with Morag Reed, who joins us from British Columbia. And she's also a 3P coach and a grief specialist. So welcome, Morag.
Thank you, Martine. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, after lots of
power outages, no internet. Yeah, it's good to be here now.
Yeah, but still, no, you're in BC, I'm in Ottawa. No, still the magic of the internet, no. So that's still make it possible. So I will ask you the famous question. And the famous question is, how does having this understanding, this three principle understanding, how does that help you with stress, with anxiety, lack of electricity, or COVID? So how does that help you?
Oh. It's changed me completely. I just love, even when I get caught up in, stress or worry or, whatever, it takes a shorter and shorter time for me to go, oh, hold on. That's what's coming through at the moment. And it's faster and faster for me to just see it for what it is, which is right now, I'm thinking whatever thoughts and then I'm feeling those, and that can seem really real in that moment. And sometimes I stay there. Sometimes, oh no, this one really does look real. This one, this is the one that is the difference. Exactly. And then it's like, oh no. And I think it worked for me, myself at the moment. I could see that much more. So if I was thinking, I've got so much to do and I'm never going to get it done, and then that feeling of, and writing the lists or whatever, it really helped me going, okay, that's what I'm thinking, that's how I'm feeling. I can stay there. I don't have to. So I don't take myself so seriously, so I can move on or not. And then I think then seeing it with my husband, who could be an exception before, but no, he really is ... And really being able to see that and coming so quickly to a different place with it. So it just opened up possibilities. And so I saw it before as I'd written the script. I'm word perfect in the script. I might shoot the film in different scenes, but the script is the same. Maybe the characters are the same. And then I just kept seeing, well, that's boring. I don't see the same movie multiple times a day. So it just opens that up. And then there's that sense of possibility, that sense of playfulness. There's a lighter feeling, even when I can get caught up, and I do. I'm human, but I realize it's human. It's not something I have to do anything about. And the less I do, the more it just writes itself. So yeah, it's so much more ease, playful, possibility, and a comfort being in the unknown. I think that would be another thing of, I woke up in the night for some reason, I can't remember why, and something was on my mind. I don't remember what it was, and I almost heard myself saying, not out loud, I don't know. And that just took me into oh yeah, I don't know. And it was almost like, whew, let that go. And even in that moment, I was like, wow, where did that come from? Because it wasn't a conscious, I don't know. It just came up. I don't know. I don't know. And it just changed it. So yeah, so from everything, from how I am with myself, how I do things, how I'm in relationship, even when I'm awake in the middle of the night, it feels easier. Yeah, more fun.
And you also working with people that are dying,
Yes,
and also with a grief group. How does that understanding helps in those situations?
I think the I don't know comes. I was with somebody for almost a year who was dying, who was just a couple of years older than me. And initially, it was, and this person said, well, what can you do? You're not dying. And and so that was a real reminder. No, I'm not. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know your experience. So it was a real invitation for me to stay in that not knowing. And we became very, very close. And I think that not knowing, that listening, and that um, staying present and open to, okay, what's going to come up, it allowed me to really be. And maybe that, such an extreme example, somebody will say my sort of age dying, and not easy, it was a lot of pain. um, maybe my sort of thinking, oh, I've got answers to this, maybe it was so obvious, no you don't, that it allowed me just to drop into that space of not knowing. And so I could be fully present. um, so that's what comes to mind about that. And with people who are grieving, and I have, many, I've lost many loved ones. Many loved ones have died, and I've gone through different experiences of grief. And even that reminds me, I don't know, because each one was different. Um, the relationship was different. The circumstances of their death was different. I was, so everything was different. So again, it wasn't a cookie cutter recipe. Aha, it's this stage and this stage and this stage, you're done. And again, it's that genuinely being without an agenda. I think maybe the only things I find myself saying when I'm doing a group, is one, inviting silence, because I think that can really help people just go inside. That can be helpful. Another one is being gentle with ourselves. Just being gentle. This is what it is to be human. We're not broken. We're not mentally ill. We're grieving. And that gentleness.
Self-compassion.
Exactly. And I think that, that's the other bit of, this is normal. This is part of being human. I heard somebody saying that grief is love expressing itself, which I hadn't heard before in that way. And I was like, yes. And that gives a completely different thing, rather than it's something you have to go through and fix and all this sort of thing. It's just letting go of all of those. So normalizing, just going,
and there's there's no expiration date. No. Some people, especially I will say the Occidental people, probably not less in other parts of the world, but here, that we don't think about that. We don't see that, even though we all have an expiration date, and we're going to lose people, and we have lost people, but we don't see that. Like we put them in the hospice now. And then the last few funerals that I went to, the body was not even there.
Yes.
Well, before COVID, right?
Yes.
Now with COVID, it's another story, but before COVID, it was only the ashes. Now, and it's like occulting death. Like, I don't see it. It's not there. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's certainly a move back away from that. And I agree. I find it like, oh, there's not even a human shape. There's the little urn and maybe a photograph. So yeah, and I know here where I live, there's an end of life society, and about green burial, and about being able to have the body at home for 2 or 3 days, and if people want, and it's but to have that acknowledging, as you say, we do have an expiration date, and I think this is something I learned so much from my client who was dying, of really being present to it, and then somebody else who died earlier this year, and it was never mentioned ever, and that's what they wanted, and it's totally okay. That's okay, and certainly family and friends and everything were really around that amazing care and support, and it almost felt like this was the elephant in the room, which I don't know if it would have been different if the conversations had been had, saying goodbye. There was time that it was cancer. I don't know. Would the grieving be easier? I don't know. It's the I don't know again. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very different ways of approaching it, rather than it being part of life, which it is. We look at nature, trees fall down, new trees grow from it. It's that cycle. It's such a cliche, but it's true. But we act as if no, no. We act on consuming and more and bigger and younger and all that sort of stuff. And
or sometimes people will say, well, it's been, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, and they expect the other person to get over it.
Yes. And this idea of getting over, so I always think it was like jumping over a fence and, oh, I'm done now. And I think, like, love never goes away. I mean, if it's that idea of grief is love expressing itself, well, the love doesn't go away. And in my own experience, it continues to evolve. I continue to experience it at different levels, and therefore the grief will be part of that as well. It's not the tsunami of intense grief. It can be little ripples, or it can suddenly be a song or something, and boom, you're right back. And it doesn't matter whether it's been a year or 30 years. But again, it's like, for me, coming back to this understanding, I get to experience all of it. None of it's a problem. That's the difference. For grief, I get to experience intense grief. When this friend was dying, I was at a point I couldn't stop crying. It was just going. And even as I was doing that, I knew that that's what my body needs to do, my heart, whatever it needs to do. And it was totally fine. And then I knew that, yes, it would move through. And then there was gratitude, there was sadness, there was love, there was everything. So that's the difference of knowing that things always move through, and it's much easier, less painful, maybe, to go through that. Even though, your eyes hurt, your nose is red, but to go through that, because it's love expressing itself. And that, for me, when I've seen people suffering in grief for many years, sometimes it's because totally innocently, it's like, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. I'm too scared of being stuck. There's such a fear of being stuck. So I won't. And I'll put it in a box, and maybe I'll look at it. And that's okay. We're all different. But certainly people who are just like, okay, here we go. I'm going through it. There's that ability to experience all of life. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Which, it just feels a deeper expression.
And it's all part of the human experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's exhausting. I have done this. It's exhausting thinking, I'll have that thought, but not that. And I want lots of this feeling, but none of that.
Yeah.
I mean, A, we can't, but B, it's exhausting. And then something happens like, no, you're trying to push it. No, it's, and I think we were exploring in our group last week about the idea of solid ground. And this came from listening to a talk by somebody whose name completely escapes me, whose father had died of COVID. It was in the 3P UK conference. And her father had died of COVID in London in December, and all of the emotions. And she talked about solid ground, and knowing that there was that solid ground from this understanding allowed her to go through everything. And it was the and, which I love. It all belongs, and you can be laughing at a memory and crying at the loss, and deep, deep sadness and deep surprise at a spiritual connection. All of that can be experienced. It's the and. And I was really struck by that having that solid ground, even when it feels tippy, within, life has got this. You can experience that. And sometimes it's helpful having people alongside you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. There's also Grace Kelly, who who writes also beautifully about her partner who died suddenly, and the spiritual connection is still there.
Yes, and I think that's what, by having that sort of peace that when we have it, and we're human, and grief certainly stirs up so much stuff. We are upended in many ways, but when we glimpse that peace beyond the waves, beneath the waves, then there is that connection. And I love, love, love John O'Donohue's poem for grief. That for me sums up grief. And at the very end, he says, you'll learn acquaintance with basically your loved one in a non-physical, and you'll return to the hearth in your soul where your loved one awaits for your return all the time. And that for me is going beneath all that. And that's where the connection with ourselves, the connection with our loved ones is. And that for me is the journey of grief, and learning new relationship with that person, however that looks like. And my experience is it doesn't happen when we're trying to think our way out of it. Like, we don't think our way into love. We can't think our way out of grief. That doesn't work. And we do that. That's okay. And again, it's a gentleness. Okay, we did it. That's okay. And then we notice and go, okay. And there's maybe a glimmer of just some space, some peace beneath that. And that's where the gifts lie. Yeah. And the other time, I mean, certainly in my own experience, when my brain was so like overwhelmed with grief, it literally was like, I can't deal with this, I'm out. And that's when it was like, I could go right down. So that can also happen. But that's for me the peace, the gentleness, the confidence, or the trust, or even the glimmer that it's okay. It's okay. We can experience everything. We get to experience everything, and that idea of beneath the thinking there is that connection, there is that solid ground, which will guide us through whatever.
That's beautiful. I will try to put that little poem in the comments as well, so people can read it as well.
It is beautiful. Yeah, every bit. Yeah, he really knew grief, John O'Donohue, I think, from reading that. Yeah.
Thank you, Morag.
Thank you. Lovely being with you, exploring.
Yes, it was beautiful. And if people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
They might be able to find me on my website, which is maybe defunct. My coaching is in the field coaching.com. And I called it that because of Rumi's poem, Out Beyond Ideas of Right Doing and Wrong Doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. So it's inthefieldcoaching.com. And if that doesn't work, it's in the field coaching, all one word, at yahoo.com. So yeah, that's where I am. And always interested in exploring. So thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank
doing
you for
this as
your
well.
wisdom, and thank you for accepting to play with me today.
It was lovely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.